Hello and welcome to another episode of Raw Chatter. I am your host speaking, Vicky Midwood, human health optimizer, addiction eliminator. Yes, I am here solo again. Today it is a Bank Holiday Monday here in the UK, and you will be listening to this the following day, I hope. I wanted to talk about a topic that has come up quite a lot in the last 2 or 3 weeks, to be honest, both in my inbox, in posts that I've been reading on social media, and I think it's time that I started to talk a little bit more about just general health and well-being rather than just one specific issue. For those of you who don't know, my specialism is helping people with solution problems, as it were. What does that mean? So people who want to change how they look so they can feel better about themselves as a solution to not feeling good enough. People who turn to alcohol to numb out, to blot out the world, to squash down emotions, or to just basically help themselves to relax at the end of the day, otherwise using alcohol as a solution. And so what I want to do is help us to really focus on the big things that will move the needle, but that don't take a lot of time, that a lot of us overlook in favor of getting lost in the minute details of things. So to clarify that a bit more simply, if we're talking about the best way to help ourselves to drop body fat, for example, summer is coming. People are thinking about holidays. There's a lot of emails, no doubt, going to be hitting your inbox, and you're going to see posts all over social media now, probably enticing you to drop a dress size for June, or to lose X amount of pounds in X days, or to get a bikini body, or get fit for summer, or you know what I mean, right? There's going to be a plethora of those things on TV adverts, no doubt, the holidays, and you'll be kind of bombarded with pictures of the perfect bodies. And so our brains are going to turn to what we see and what we hear a lot of. But if we're going to go down that road, what a lot of people get lost in is asking me questions about the small stuff, i.e., is this yogurt better than that one? Is this milk better than that one? Right? And they're getting so lost in the small details of what they are eating that they are absolutely missing the bigger picture. Like, are you sleeping well? Because if you're not sleeping well, then getting bogged down in the minute differences between that yogurt and that yogurt are kind of not going to move the needle for you. They're pretty irrelevant. If you are running literally the candle at both ends, and you're getting or trying to survive on less than 6 hours of sleep, by default, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle to drop body fat. You're also going to struggle with energy. You're also going to struggle in terms of making great choices around food, because you're more likely to go for the stuff that will give you an energy boost, will give your blood glucose levels a bit of a boost. And we fall then into the trap of either the caffeine cycle or the sugar cycle, where you're getting your boost, you're feeling energized, and then you crash, and then you go for another hit, and then you crash, and then you go for another hit, and then you crash. And so many people spend every single day doing this, and then they can't sleep at night because their blood sugar levels are tanked, or they've eaten too close to going to bed, and their body just is not in the right place for sleep because it's still trying to digest. In other words, what yogurt you pick or what milk you pick, if you're not sleeping well, it's kind of pointless and a bit of a waste of energy, waste of time, waste of brain space. So what I want to talk about is why we need to look at the major stuff before we get bogged down in those tiny details. Now, some of you may be going, yeah, I know. And this is the problem. Because the major stuff that all of us need to do to feel healthy is pretty much lifestyle focused. And when I say healthy, I'm talking about mental health, emotional health, social well-being, social health. I'm also talking about relationship health. I'm talking about financial health, because all of those things are going to be affected by what we do on a daily basis. In other words, our lifestyle habits. And these are the things that we need to be looking at rather than the tiny stuff like, should I do a 45-minute HIIT workout or a 30-minute one? Well, you know what? If you're not actively focusing on breathing well and your posture, and you are trying to work out just to hit numbers, to tick certain boxes, and you're not tuning in to what your body is telling you and how you're feeling, then it doesn't actually make a damn bit of difference whether you do 45 minutes or 30 minutes or 20 minutes, because it's probably not going to make any difference to you overall hitting the goals that you say you want to hit. And so what I wanted to do in this episode is really just lay down the important stuff. And for those of you who are going to be going, oh, she's going to tell us to sleep more, she's going to be telling us to manage stress, she's going to be telling us to drink more. Well, yeah, right? Because if you do those things and don't just talk about doing those things or think about doing those things or make a plan and prepare to do those things, but you don't actually take action, then you are likely to distract yourself by getting bogged down in the minor stuff, because you're trying to kid yourself that it's this minor stuff over here that's stopping you from getting the results that you want. And if you can just crack the right kind of milk or the right kind of yogurt or the right kind of grain or the exact amount of protein, then you somehow are going to crack it without doing the stuff that actually makes the difference. And I can tell you now, good luck with that, right? Because you will be doing that forever and you will not get the results that you want, and potentially you're going to wonder why you've got an autoimmune issue, or you've suddenly got heart disease or cancer, or you're heading for Alzheimer's or type 2 diabetes. Why? Because you're focusing on the stuff that is not important and you are not focusing on the stuff that is. Now, hands up anybody who can recognize themselves in that, right? We've all done it at some point, me included. When I was in the depths of my issues and addictions, the tiny details were the stuff that I really focused on. And I could just, kind of brush away the fact that I was running on five hours of sleep, right? And it wasn't even quality sleep. So, it was even less than that. It's hardly surprising that I ended up with the health issues that I now manage, thanks to my disregard for the important stuff. Hydration, what was that? Yeah, I was living on either caffeine or alcohol, pretty much it. I mean, yes, I would drink water when I was teaching classes, but most of the time it was caffeine or it was alcohol, and that is what my body was functioning on. Hardly any sleep, a load of caffeine, a load of alcohol, a lot of nicotine, and really not very much nutrient dense food at all. No wonder when I finally got a whole blood test panel through years later to find out what was actually going on in my body, the guy who gave me the results was just like gobsmacked that I was even still standing. So the body is pretty darn resilient. But if you want to have the life that you say you want, if you want to achieve the goals that you want in terms of looks and energy and performance and getting to do the stuff that lights you up, that makes you feel good, then you need to really start to shift that mindset to focusing on the major stuff that makes the difference on a daily basis. And I know it's boring. Okay, bring on the boring, because this is the stuff that actually does make the difference in terms of disease and illness prevention, in terms of cellular function, mitochondrial function, in terms of cognitive function, i.e. hopefully preventing you from getting Alzheimer's or dementia, which we know now is the biggest killer. It's taken over from heart disease. And we know that all kinds of cancers are increasing across all age groups and across all sexes, which means we have got to look at the fact that we are getting so bogged down in the brands and in the marketing of things that actually don't make that much difference. And we're ignoring the stuff that does. So let's really think about why we need to do the stuff that actually does make a difference. if we want to think well, if we want to function well, if we want our memory to be working well as we age, because just because you're getting older does not mean you should have a memory that's declining. That is rubbish. There's so many myths around aging that really need to be squashed. And the fact that you lose your memory when you get older is one of them. Right? There are some truths, though, that we need to take on board and help us to take action. Does our muscle tissue decline with age? Yes. Right? Is it affected particularly in women because our estrogen drops specifically? Yes. Does that mean we should aim to eat more protein as we get older? Yes. Should we weight train? Yes. Right? Absolutely, categorically, yes. These do need to change. So what were the majors when you were in your 20s will have shifted slightly, okay, as you get into the over 50 arena. And I know there's going to be a vast age group kind of across the board, and that's great, but recognize that the stuff that is important in your 20s, think about career wise, think about friendship wise, that changes when you've had a family. If you're building your own business when you're in your 20s and you have more energy and your body does bounce back more, it is more resilient, you can get away with having more days when you do burn the candle at both ends. But knowing when to stop, reset, recharge is important. As you get to over 50, you're going to have to be a little bit more discerning about when those days happen. They are going to happen, right? Because life and growing a business, and if you're transitioning or you're changing career, then yeah, you have to put in that work and that effort. As long as you don't fool yourself into thinking that you are as resilient and you are immune to the effects that has on your cellular function. So what are the things that are important? Well, I've mentioned sleep. It's absolutely crucial, number one. Right? There is so much research out there, and Google it, use ChatGPT, go on to PubMed, wherever you want to find your studies, and just check out the importance of sleep when it comes to brain function, mental wellness, as also, of course, physical well-being. If we don't get enough sleep, it affects our hormones on every single level. It affects our gut function. It affects just about every single part of us, right? There is nothing that isn't affected by our sleep. And what we do know now is it's not necessarily the hours of sleep that you get, it is the quality, the deep sleep that is the important thing. But we also know that we work on a circadian rhythm, and there are people who function better. They are indeed night owls. But the majority of us tend to work on a circadian rhythm that works more with the lights, with the sun. And really, we want to be in bed by 10 o'clock if we can. There is a correlation. Remember, correlation does not mean causation, but there is a correlation that cannot be ignored with the way and how people manage to handle stress. People who go to bed by 10 o'clock tend to do better than those who go to bed after midnight. There is a difference again between people who go to bed between midnight and 2 a.m. as to how their body actually deals with food, with energy, how their weight is monitored, and so forth. So there's a lot of research now on this that we didn't have before that now we do. We're understanding so much more about the nuances of just when do you get that quality sleep, not just the amount. So if we can think about where we sit and know, most of you know whether you are somebody who tends to work well later on in the evening or whether you tend to work well, I'm talking about on a cognitive level here, in the morning. Okay, and this is where recognizing, if you're like me, I know that I seem to function better cognitively in a morning, then it makes sense for me to be in bed before 10 p.m. I know people who absolutely function so much better in the evenings, and so they're going to shift and work with how they function best. But recognize sleep is number one. And getting bogged down in whether you do a 20-minute workout or a 45-minute workout, or whether you have oat milk or almond milk as opposed to cow's milk is not going to move the needle if you're trying to drop body fat if you ain't getting enough sleep. Right. So understand what are the important things. Hydration is next, along with posture, breathing, oxidation. Right? Because we need to get enough oxygen in and we need to get enough fluid in. And you're not going to separate those two. They're equally important. Well, I think all three are equally important. And so making sure that you are not just hydrating with just any old water, but quality water. And you're going to be sick of hearing me say the word quality. Because the problem that we have with the rise in obesity and Alzheimer's and dementia and cancers and basically every illness that we can think of is on the increase, mental, physical, and emotional, right? And it's down to quality. A lot of the time, the quality of our tap water, right, is not amazing. So if you haven't got a filter, get one. Hydrogen water, we know now there is so much more research coming out and the benefits of hydrogen water, but also you need to make sure you've got enough electrolytes. So can you get a hydrogen water bottle? Yes, you can. Do you need to buy expensive gadgets to put in your whole house? Well, if you can, then do it. But if you want to just get yourself a bottle that will hydrogenize your water, then do that. Drinking out of glass rather than plastic, right? That's not a minor, that's a major. Not heating up stuff in plastic is a major. We know now we're finding plastics in stem cells, right, of umbilical cords and fetuses, and it's just horrific the amount of plastic that we are being exposed to. And yes, correlation is not causation, but we can't get away from the fact that there is so much more plastic in our world now than there has ever been, and there is so much more illness on every level than there has ever been. When we also look at, right, how the electrolyte balance, right? So are you getting enough minerals? Because we can drink too much water. We absolutely can. And if you're not getting the minerals that you need, the cells are not actually going to be able to utilize it. So you'll be peeing all day long. So making sure that you are drinking. And when I talk about drinking, I don't just mean water. Tea counts, right? Green tea, particularly if you've got ADHD, if it is high in L-theanine, which is fantastic. So recognizing it doesn't have to just be plain water, but think about the quality of what you are actually drinking and making sure that you are ticking those boxes. Now, if you just do those things and you breathe through your nose rather than through your mouth, when you're on your computer, just notice what are you doing. Why? Again, it's down to quality, where we've got hairs in our nose that are going to filter out the crap that we can't see, the tiny particles that we don't want going into our bodies. But if you're constantly breathing through your mouth, then you're missing out that vital cleansing process of the air that's going in. So is that complicated? To get enough sleep, to hydrate properly with quality water, and to breathe through your nose so that you've got quality air going in? I would say not. But people are getting so bogged down with how many grams of protein am I eating and how many hours of cardio exercise have I got in this week. If you're not doing those base things, then the effort that you're putting in over there on the minor stuff is not going to give you a corresponding result, and you're going to feel frustrated. And I get it, right? Because I did that, and you sold this stuff, right? This is the magic thing that will make all the difference. And I'm categorically here to say, no, it is not. Until you get your head round drinking enough, breathing properly through your nose, deep breaths, not shallow breaths, getting sufficient sleep the majority of the time, then you are not going to get the results that you think you should from the effort that you're putting in by focusing on the stuff that is not going to make the biggest difference. You might want to stop that, rewind it, and just play it again, because it's so, so important. When it comes to exercise, over and above what exercise type shall I do, the most important thing is move. Right? Move as often as you can. Walking is brilliant. right? So get your steps in. Steps are important, right? The more you can move just generally, the better. If you then have got the opportunity and the time to get in some proper workouts, yes, we need cardio and we need weights. And it's not an either or, it's an and. We need to get in the cardio because we want to have healthy functioning cardiovascular system. We absolutely do. But we also need to maintain our ligaments, our tendons, our muscle tissue, right? And that's equally as important. It's not more than, it's not less than. And if somebody says to me, oh, what's the best exercise for fat loss? There isn't one, except move, right? Move as much as you can. Get those steps in. If you're going to do a 2-hour workout in the gym, and then for the rest of the day you're on your butt and you're not moving at all, the gains are not going to be what you would hope in terms of fat loss. They're just not over time. And then you'll be scratching your head going, oh, shall I just work on whether I should do now 5 sets of 8 repetitions or shall I cut it down to 3 sets and do 20 repetitions? And again, you're getting bogged down in the minor stuff instead of going, yeah, but how much am I moving? How much am I actually moving through the day? So movement, crucial. Sleep, crucial. Hydration, crucial. Yeah. Breathing through your nose so that you get quality air in, not breathing through your mouth all the time. Crucial. Major stuff, right? Simple, free, not complicated at all. And then when it comes to food, this is where people go, oh my God, right? Let's keep that simple as well. Eat at meal times, ideally, regularly, if you can. Yeah. Try and eat sufficient in a meal so that you are not wanting to snack all of the time. And all of the meals and the snacks that you do have need to contain sufficient protein, fiber, and fat. It's not complicated. Protein from animal sources is going to be less filling, and you're probably going to need to eat less in terms of volume to get the amount of protein that you need if you do eat animal products, which is a challenge, I know, for people who go down the road of eating disorders, because there's generally a pattern, particularly with anorexia and bulimia, is that we start off, first of all, cutting out certain foods and then often become vegetarian, and then the next step become vegan. And if you're trying to then recover and you're not eating animal protein, it is uncomfortable and it is challenging to get in the amount of protein that you need, because you have to eat a lot of volume. And that means that you feel bloated, that it's a lot for your digestive system to handle. And that plays havoc with the brain, with the mindset, because if you look at your tummy after eating, you're going to be telling yourself you're getting fat. So it's an absolute challenge for people who are in recovery, particularly from anorexia, who are vegan. It's so much easier if you eat animal protein. It is more satisfying. As I say, you need to eat less. Is it a little bit harder on the digestive system? Yes, but if you're priming yourself before you eat, so you're eating in a state of calm and relaxation, we're going into the parasympathetic part of your nervous system. Parasympathetic, peace, rest, digest, PP, parasympathetic and peace. If we eat in that state of calm and peace, your body can handle it so much better. If you're eating in a state of anxiety, if you're in the sympathetic part of your nervous system, i.e. stress, then your body's going to struggle to make the acid, to make the enzymes that it requires to break the food down. And so eating in a state of calm, eating ideally sat down, eating from a plate, not from a packet with your hands or from a carton with a spoon shoveling it into your mouth, but actually taking time to sit at a table without a computer screen in front of your face, without any screen, to be honest, that is distracting you, and actually eat with intention and connection to the food, to how it tastes, to the textures in your mouth, and getting in the protein, as I say, the fiber coming from vegetables and fruits and grains if you're okay with grains. And recognizing that if you have those things, we want flavor, and fats bring in flavor. Now, if you eat animal products, fat's naturally in there. Nature provides both. Fat and protein together are the most satisfying things that you can eat for the least amount of volume. And so this is where you don't have to eat massive meals, but you want to be satisfied. And this is key. This is the foundations and the fundamentals. If your meals are low fat, low calorie, you may be full, right? You may even be stuffed to the point where you feel really uncomfortable and your waistband's digging in. But you might not feel satisfied. Why? Because there wasn't the sufficient amount of protein and fat that gave your brain and your whole digestive system that cue, we're good. We've got the nutrients we need. We're ticking all of the boxes in terms of vitamins and minerals and fats and proteins. And so you're going to find that you're uneasy, that you're kind of thinking, well, I could do with something else. I'm full, but I want something else to eat. And we start to then go down the road of falling out with ourselves. What, you're not even hungry. Why do you want to eat anything? And we're forgetting the satisfaction factor. And it's massive, right? Food is meant to be enjoyed. It is supposed to be satisfying and not just filling. And this is a problem that we've got with a lot of fast food, because it will fill us up. Right? And it will definitely light up the brain. It will hit the taste buds with just the right amount of sugar and salt and sweet and sour that just lights up that brain and goes, yeah, give me more. But how many times have all of us done it where you've had some kind of fast food meal and you found that you're kind of looking for something else? You want a nibble, right? Probably a couple of hours, maybe less later on. And it's nothing to do with the amount of calories that you've eaten. And it's nothing to do with how full you felt after that. It's because it wasn't satisfying. It wasn't giving you the nutrients that you needed. So to reiterate, real food, not from packets, not from bags and boxes with barcodes, right? Food that you actually have to maybe peel and chop and pick and fish for, right? And grow. Those kinds of foods where you've got texture and color and crunch and it's not all beige or brown, right? Those are the foods that we need to be making at least 80% of our diet. Am I like the food police? No. Those foods are fun foods, right? We want to have them. If I go to the cinema, I'm going to have some popcorn. My body doesn't like it at all, but I'll have some. But what I will do is I will now remember that it's dose dependent for me. So if I go too much over, I'm going to pay the price. I'm going to pay with consequences. For those of you who are wondering why am I saying that, I've got autoimmune issue, and so corn is a grain that is not great for my gut. And this leads me now to talking about how our gut is affected by those foods. And if it affects our gut, it affects our mood. If it affects our mood, it means our hormones are being affected. It also means if it affects our gut, our neurotransmitters are being affected. Our neurotransmitters are made in our gut. Our blood glucose balance is going to be skyrocketing if we're always choosing foods that are high in carbohydrates and high in fats. They're giving us that fast energy boost. If also caffeine is going to affect our blood glucose levels. And this is back to this idea that you're on this roller coaster where you get hangry, where you get really kind of short-tempered because you're just not giving your cells any cells, because ultimately that's what we're made of. We're made of cells. And within those cells, we obviously have the ATP that creates the energy that allows us to function. But all of the food that we eat is going to affect the bacteria in our gut. It's also going to affect the messages that are being sent from the gut to the brain. And just as a reminder, there are many, many, many more messages that go from the gut to the brain than the other way around. And it's a constant conversation. There is feedback and information going on all the time from all of our senses about everything that's going on in our body. So does the temperature in the room affect us? Yes. Does it affect our mood? Definitely. I know people, and I'm sure you do, who prefer to be in a cooler environment. And there are other people who find that they just get bad-tempered if they're in heat. There are other people who flake out when they're in heat. So temperature affects us, but it affects us all differently. And so it's about knowing you and knowing how your body works, but also recognizing that we are all humans and there are some fundamentals that just work for all of us humans. Number 1, sleep. Number 2, hydration. Number 3, oxygenation, quality air. Number 4, move your ass, right? As often as you can, as frequently as you can, instead of getting bogged down in how many minutes, just be active. Number 4, protein, fat, and fiber from food that doesn't come from bags and boxes in barcodes or from bakeries that are pretending they're from fresh and they're not. And the next thing then is about what are you listening to? What are you actually consuming in terms of media, right? Because that stuff is massively important. If you are listening to other people who are on the same level as you, thinking that they know better than you, then chances are you're going to find yourself very often in a place of indecision, of procrastination. And I covered this in last week's episode, in episode 26. Because, for example, if you're a university student and you're unsure about what you're doing, asking somebody else who is in the same class as you for advice and thinking that they know better than you is not a great move. Asking somebody who is in a year above you, who's already done your year and done the assignments and the exams and stuff that you are going to be doing, it's probably a much better idea, right? Why? Because these people have done it. If you're asking advice for somebody who hasn't done it either, it's a little bit like the blind leading the blind. Right. But if you're somebody who's got low self-worth or low self-esteem, or if you're struggling with ADHD, you're going to believe that the other person knows better than you. And if this is going on for you and you're starting to question yourself, this is another reason why often you'll forget to focus on the majors because you're getting so bogged down in the minors. And again, we have to think about, when we're talking about nourishing ourselves, I'm not just talking about food and oxygen and hydration and sleep. I am talking about what we are consuming in terms of the written word, the spoken word, and what we're listening to from TV or podcasts or whatever. There are so many health podcasts out there now. And there are so many experts in health who are talking about very different aspects of health. And if you listen to them all, you're probably going to be super confused because there are so many people saying so many things, but there's a lot of blanket statements. And if anybody gives a blanket statement on a topic that is more specific, my alarm bells are going to ring, right? Because we know when it comes to health, one size does not fit all. But the stuff that I'm talking about, right, how much we're sleeping in terms of quality sleep that we're getting every night, the time that we go to bed is definitely going to affect how we function, particularly when it comes to how our body handles the food that we eat and keeping our body weight stable. That is just proven fact through so many research papers now over years, not just a few years, a lot of years. When we're looking at things like the quality of the air that we breathe, we know it makes a difference. The same with the quality of the water. The same with the fact that if our electrolytes are out of balance, we're not going to function so well. Right? These are all proven. These are blanket statements, yes, but not in the same way as somebody saying everybody should fast. No, right? Just no. Not everybody should. Things like, should we keep moving more? Yes, definitely. We absolutely should. Should we, ideally, if we're going to exercise on a regular basis, get a combination of cardio and weight training? Yes, pretty much we know that across the board, that is the case for all humans. And when it comes to eating real food as opposed to processed ultra-processed food the majority of the time, do we know that that means that we are going to be better from a mental health point of view as well as a physical health point of view because of the connection to the gut and how that all connects together with the gut-brain axis? Absolutely, yes. All of this stuff is true. So before you start getting yourself into a right old tiswas about, oh, I didn't hit my protein grams today and I missed a workout and I said I was going to do X amount of workouts this week and I didn't, just stop for a moment and ask yourself, are you trying to major in the minors? Because if you are, I'm going to invite you to stop and to take stock. Get really good at taking action on the boring, mundane, daily stuff that absolutely will make the difference. You don't need to get bogged down in weighing every single mouthful that goes into your mouth. You don't need to get bogged down in the numbers unless you are an athlete who has to be a certain weight and a certain body fat for a specific event. Then you don't need to be doing this stuff. If you want to prevent type 2 diabetes, heart attacks, dementia, right? All of the illnesses that are rapidly on the increase because people are not doing the stuff that is the day-to-day lifestyle stuff that makes the difference, then I implore you to take an honest look at what you're doing and just shift where your focus goes. Now, it's the same whether you're in business, right? And people who are in business know this. Health and business are hand in hand. Your health is your wealth. And chances are that you are spending, if you're not prioritizing your health and you're looking at more of the minor stuff, then chances are you're doing similar in your business. And I know I was. Right? For a long, long time, I was not doing the stuff. I was doing the stuff I knew how to do, and I was doing the stuff that I was comfortable with. Right? But was that the stuff that was actually making a difference? No. Why? Because that stuff that was making a difference, well, it's a bit tedious. I having to do it day in, day out. And so I would rather go over here and do the stuff that was a bit more fun, like doing my podcast, like writing articles. I can get lost in writing all day long. But is that actually me connecting with potential people who I can help and being able to serve them? No. Right? Is that the stuff that I need to be doing day in, day out? Yes. Is it mundane? Yes. Is it the same every single day? Yes. But is it the stuff that makes the difference? Yes. It is no different when it comes to your health. So I hope you have felt that this has been helpful for you. This is the time, I believe, that May is a great time for a complete reset and an honest look back. Right? We've got the summer coming up. And before you know it, we're going to be into the autumn, and then you're going to be looking at the last quarter and you're going to be going, and yet another year, where's it gone? Why am I not getting the results that I want? Why am I feeling older, not functioning so well? Why am I having yet another groundhog year? You don't have to. And the thing is, you never have a groundhog year when it comes to your health, because if you're ignoring the stuff that makes the difference, that prevents illness, that keeps you functioning well, that helps your energy, that allows you to feel good in yourself and about yourself, if you're consistently ignoring that stuff, it gets worse. It doesn't get better. It doesn't stay the same. So I'm inviting you to take the opportunity to focus on mastering your energy, mastering your health. And if you do want help knowing where to begin for you, because you're just like, okay, I know what I'm not doing, but how do I fit it into my day? How do I make it a part of my lifestyle? Then reach out. There's a link. You can book a call with me, just 30 minutes, and I can help you to actually walk away from that call with some very simple ideas that you can go off and you can implement. Right? It's not difficult. It doesn't have to be complicated, and it certainly doesn't need to take a lot of time. So on that note, I'm going to leave it there, folks. I will say this as I always do. We only have one life as far as we know it, and one body. So look after it, because it is looking after you. Until next time, take care of yourself. Bye-bye.